Christine, you want me to start my intro?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
start.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Dooap presentation on AP automation for D365 Finance and Operations, and obviously Finance and Supply Chain and AX 2012. We're joined by Scott Schlegel from Dooap, who is going to be performing the presentation. In case any of you are not currently GraVoc customers, we're a 30-year Microsoft partner, Business Solutions certified. We support all of the Microsoft Dynamics ERP systems and are helping folks transition from legacy ERP like AX 2012, AX 2009, as well as Dynamics GP, SL, and NAV to Business Central and Finance and Operations. And therefore, we like to bring enhancement solutions like Dooap to our customer base for these types of presentations for educational purposes. And with that, I will hand it over to Scott.
Thanks, Daniel. Really appreciate it, and really do appreciate our partnership with GraVoc. So you have me on screen here for a little bit, and you have me here. My name is Scott Schlegel. I'm a partner channel manager, or director, excuse me, for Dooap, and I am looking forward to talking with you about what we've seen as far as some of the myths with AP automation. So certainly appreciate your time with that. Just quickly as well, what Dooap is, we are solely an AP automation solution, a true Windows-based solution that works with clients such as you for D365 F&O, as Daniel mentioned, FNSCM, whatever you want to call it right now, and AX 2012 as well. We do have a global client base, but the majority of our clients, 80% of our clients, are in North America. And by the way, you're going to see the dog theme throughout, and people always ask about that. That is Dooap the dog, and it is a border collie. And if you know border collies, they basically round up sheep and keep them in line. And so in this case, the analogy is that sheep are invoices. So you're going to see our Dooap dog theme throughout. All right, so today we wanted to talk about the most common myths that we have in our industry when it comes to AP automation. So we're going to cover these myths as far as, from our perspective. We'll start with, we do not need a separate solution. We can cope with what's in D365 out of the box. We're also going to talk about if you have AX 2012 or in AX 2012, plan on upgrading, as Daniel mentioned, or plan on, if the upgrade's coming, but it's going to be down the road, that there's no AP automation solution for you or easy win to do this before the transition that happens. And then another big one is AP automation is a huge, cumbersome IT project with development and things like that, and a lot of work in there. So we're going to talk about these three myths, and then at the end, I will also just show a little bit about our Dooap solution as well. So it's always good to see a little bit of product. I will say this, please feel free to, in chat, throw any questions that you have. We'll be monitoring the chat, and I promise I will stop 10 minutes ahead of time. So at 35 minutes after the hour, I will stop my presentation and make sure that we open it up for any questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them down, be ready to ask at that point, or go ahead and type them in, and then our team will basically take a look at that information, and we'll ask it when we go through at that particular point. All right, so first myth. We do not need a separate solution. We can cope with D365 out-of-the-box features. So D365 does have what they call an invoice capture solution. And what we're going to approach this as is in a couple directions. One is licensing, and the other is capability. The invoice capture solution is purposely not AP automation. Not really AP automation out of the box. It's still in its infant stage. I will say this, based on information that we've gathered from customers that have tried it, or customers that have looked at it and are interested in AP automation, or partners that have worked with it and have attempted to go down that path. And as a matter of fact, last week, even Microsoft themselves, I was at Dynamics Con last week in Chicago and went to a presentation on there and actually talked to the group and so forth. And they themselves have admitted there's still, it's in an infant stage and there's still things that they need to work through. So these are things that you all should be aware of if you want to try and go down the D365 invoice capture solution path. First thing is licensing. So right here, if you think you got D365 great. Okay, that's out of the box, meaning that I should be able to flip on a few switches, turn it on, and I basically have the information and have all the licensing that I need to be able to do this solution. But and this is a Microsoft slide. This is off their Microsoft deck slides. You also have to make sure that your company has licensing for Power Apps, Microsoft Dataverse, Power Automate, Microsoft AI Builder, and then obviously put it to a SharePoint site. So you see this right here. Your company may have all these tools, you may have all these licensing and so forth, but if you don't, these are the things that are going to need to be part of your solution. Again, these are listed right off of Microsoft's site for the invoice capture solution. One other thing is the electronic invoicing SKUs. Basically, this says like a monthly use it or lose it basis. What Microsoft does is they will give 100 free invoices out there for you to use. So if your company processes less than 100 invoices a month, that'll be part of their solution, part of included. Anything above that, then they require that you start purchasing blocks of additional invoice SKUs for that. So again, talking about when you think of things out of the box or it might be available, you kind of think of what's free or what's part of my solution. Just wanted to make sure that you're aware that the licensing capabilities, there's some licensing requirements that you have that are listed on here, in addition to the number of invoices that you use on a monthly basis. The other thing to think about is on a functional or a capabilities basis. And again, I want to reiterate that this is conversations from Microsoft themselves. This is an accumulation from talking with customers and partners and so forth. So let's talk about the pros first. Obviously, if it's D365 and it's part of their solution, they're building it, it's on their platform. And there's no need for integration or third-party systems. And it's part of the user experience that you have. And of course, the integration is right there with D365. So there's some really, there's some good things certainly about that. Just want to emphasize on the cons part. Again, this is like quotes from customers, things like that. But the user experience is complex, multi-click navigation. So what they mean by that is that it's not all in one window. So you have to move around and do different things. And that's similar to many other functionality within D365. So it's not the greatest experience that an AP person wants to be able to do that. So again, to try and simplify it for AP, this is a bit of a challenge. Manual data entry and lack of multi-company processing capabilities. Again, because it's in its infant stage, there's some functionality that should be in there that's not. So some of the key points is if you have multi-company, intercompany, you might want to keep an eye on that. And as far as data entry, if the goal is to streamline and say, hey, I have 2 AP people and I don't want to hire another one, I need to streamline to make things easier for them. This is not exactly the solution ready that you probably want to have at that particular point. There's other things that are out there too, and we can send out this deck so you have this available. But again, I want to emphasize the fact that that D365 does have a solution. It does do some invoice capturing and so forth, but there's a lot of additional things that need to be done on both AP side as a customer and IT. And actually, we're addressing those in some of the other myths that we have. Myth number 2, we're still on AX 2012. Is there any way we can adopt an AP automation before the upgrade? As Daniel mentioned, what part of GraVoc's goal is to get on D365 as well as us. You want to be on that solution. AX 2012 was a transition between GP and D365. Excuse me. So but there's still product out there. I will say this. There is a way for you to do it, and really, there's only one way that right now. As mentioned, Dooap is our company, and Dooap originated back in 2016. And in 2016, 2017, 2018, AX 2012 was more predominant than D365 F&O at that time. So we started on AX 2012, and the majority of our implementations and projects were on AX 2012 at that point. Since then, obviously, the tide's turned and it's D365 F&O, but we still, to this day, do AX 2012, mainly clients that are, they want to move to F&O, but they're still on AX 2012, and there's a lot of work that they put in there, and it's going to take some time to integrate. To migrate to the new solution. So what we've done is we've had a number of clients that have done this now in AX 2012, and then basically we point to D365 F&O down the road without having to do a brand new project with that. So for example, if you take a 12-month or an 18-month project for AX 2012 to Dynamics 365 F&O, that's a long time to go, okay, well, yeah, we still want to, we want to go to F&O, but can we basically do an AP automation project in between? And that's what we've done for a number of our particular clients. How we do that is this. We really do, so Dooap exists outside of D365 and AX 2012. We are an ISV that sits outside of D365 and AX 2012, but we have an API call, a continuous call into those particular products. So how we do that is we do a IT consent or a model file request into either D365 F&O or AX 2012. And what that is that's basically a secure connection request from your IT and from your company to be able to connect to the master records and all the records within either 365 or AX 2012. So if you want to think of it this way, nothing changes in here. So D365 F&O and AX 2012, they have your company's users, you have your sales tax, your vendors, your account structure, and your dimensions, projects, purchase orders, purchase receipts. All that information resides and stays in both these products. And so what happens is we, with this consent or this model file request, we have a continuous API that gets updated at the most every 5 minutes. And you can do it even quicker if you need to with that. But basically, it's always looking at information. And so what your AP team is looking at and what your approvers are looking at are the up-to-date information of these two different products into our Dooap solution with their invoices and the POs and so forth. And so that's how we can access and work on both AX 2012 and D365 F&O for anybody that needs to. We're going to show this a little bit more, but hopefully you get the idea that we are capable of handling both of those at that particular moment. Excuse me. The third myth, and this does go back to a difference between Dooap and D365 mainly, is implementing AP automation is a cumbersome IT project. We just don't have the IT resources for it. I'll even add to that that it's a cumbersome project for the customer in general, and especially with AP if you go down the path of D365, because you have to learn, you have to teach the system how to recognize OCR, and it's a multiple month project versus just a minimal with weeks of a project. So again, back to Dooap. Our onboarding, or our project, if you will, is basically these simple steps right here. And I want to emphasize a couple of things here. From kickoff to go live is generally a 4-week to a 6-week timeline. So not months, but 1 month, 1.5 months at the most. And to be honest with you, 2/3 of that is typically the UAT testing period that your team will have to make sure that the invoices are coming in and you're understanding your workflows and things like that. In general, what we do is it's something that we use a lot of, where we, in effect, we do a connect. We certainly do a connect to your test environment, whether it's D365 or AX 2012. So our Dooap connects to that test environment or sandbox. We then do a design workshop session with the finance team, which is part of the amounts that we talk about here. So basically, we're talking like 3-4 days of time, including UAT testing. But basically, the design workshop and document is working with the finance team saying, okay, how do you want your solution to go as far as workflow? Where does it go? What are the thresholds? All that kind of information is done there. Once that's done, then we do the setup of the test configuration. So we set up all the workflows, we set up that information. And so that's a big difference, is that the heavy lifting is done on our team. And so it's minimal effort on your team, more on the fact that we need to know workflows you have in your different setups and stuff like that. And then obviously you're going to be doing the testing, but we design configuration based on requirements with that. We do something called key user training, which basically gets you, it's usually a 2 or 3 hour process where we are looking at invoice and environment, or depending on your situation, and then we're going to hand it over to your AP team. And we're going to be there while you're doing your testing. So it's basically a hands-on training session remotely. And at that point, that in effect kicks off the UAT period, where we will continually be with you and hold your hand as you're going through the 3-4 week testing period with that, until you're ready to go. You know what, we're ready. The Dooap system is very straightforward. You'll see that in a minute, but we tested all our workflows, everything's good to go. So at that point, we're ready to switch over to the production environment. And so then we do one more consent. So we ask IT again to do a consent into the live production environment with our Dooap. And then at that point, everything has been tested, everything's ready to go. And we in effect do a go live support, which is an everyday connection with you. Make sure that we check in 5 straight days, and quite honestly, the rest of, up to 30 days at that point. And it really, you are good to go after that particular thing. So yes, it's certainly not like an overall implementation of every single aspect of things. It's certainly specific to AP invoice automation, but it is something that can be done. And really with this is emphasizing that there's not a lot with IT that has to be done. And quite honestly, even on the finance team, certainly a lot less effect on the day-to-day that you have with other potential implementations with that. And again, it's really can be done within 4 to 6 weeks. All right, so the remainder of this time, I want to make sure that give you a little bit of a flavor of our Dooap solution. We talked about the implementation, we talked about our capabilities and so forth. But we'll take a look at the product here. This is a general idea of how things happen and so forth with Dooap. So over here on the right, you'll see D365 F&O and AX 2012. That's the information we have, and the arrow back and forth, that is the continual API call that is done to make sure that we have the latest PO information, latest users, latest companies, latest vendors, and so forth in there. So that's always happening with that. On the left side is how we bring invoices in, and it's very straightforward. And we try and, again, make life easy for the process. So we don't want to change a lot of processes that typically companies have. So usually there's an AP inbox where invoices come in. Now, those invoices then can be auto-forwarded or manually pushed and forwarded into the Dooap system, being another email capture account. So if it's company ABC, we might have the email address might be ABC invoices@dooap.net or something like that. And so basically that's an easy email to forward, or it's an easy auto forward from your capture box that you have in AP. We can also have images scanned in and brought in. We've actually had clients that have like farming communities and so forth that basically have handwritten invoices from farmers or something like that. And we've been able to capture that information very quickly and very well in here. So once it's captured, then it comes into, and you'll see this window in a minute, basically, but we want to focus on the experience for your AP team and the efficiency of that. So it's all in one window. Everything that the AP team needs is right there in front of them. The image on the right, the detail of that image, the header, all the PO information, if need be, or the accounting information is on the left. We certainly do PO two-way or three-way matching. We do non-PO coding and so forth. We actually do something called machine learning, where the system is going to continue to learn. So again, we're trying to make this experience as good as possible. By definition, we did workflow outside of D365. And again, you all have D365 or you have AX 2012. There is workflow in there. Most people find it a little cumbersome, a little complex and so forth. So we decided to have the workflow outside the system, and I'll point that out and show you. Make things nice and simple, basically visual of the workflow. We certainly could do thresholds, multi-type workflow, steps, complex workflows. We can still do all that. That's not a problem. Audit trail is something that we pride ourselves on too. We are an accounting solution after all. So basically from the time that an email is ingested or brought into Dooap, any workflows, any changes, any comments, anything that happens in that, including the transfer into the D365 or AX 2012, is captured in the audit trail. And I'll show you that as well. And we do use Power BI. We've actually written over 25 canned reports for both AP managers, and the CFO. So again, this is the general sense in how we do things, but I'm going to go ahead and bring in the solution for a little bit of time to kind of show you what we have as far as capabilities on there. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is the window that that your AP team will see. This is a window that your approvers will see. The approvers would only see the ones that are specific to them, but AP would basically get the queue of all invoices that are coming in. So a little bit of navigation on here. I'm going to go ahead and close this for a second, or shrink it up. So basically you have different sections on here. You have your previous invoices, your active invoices, and next invoices. So again, I'm acting as an AP person right now, and these are all the invoices that have come in. So I'm going to go ahead and open this back up. So those are the ones that are in queue that are available for anybody if you have multiple AP people. And then it picked one that's for me, or the one that I'm working on as right now. Notice I'm green and highlighted. That means that's where the stage is for that particular one. So I'm looking at a PO right now on here. On the right-hand side is the actual invoice image that was brought in and what OCR captured for that information. So for example, when it looks for how we do this, specifically, we look to see if there's any POs out there. So if there's a PO available, we're going to look at that. I'm going to open this up so it's a little bit, let me move this real quick before that happens to me. I'm going to open up as a PDF, and it should, okay. Well, let's go ahead and try that again. Yep, I still got the same one. So let me open up this PDF. There we go. So what I did is I still have the Dooap here, and a lot of times, obviously I'm on one monitor right now, but if I had multiple monitors, I could have a larger image sitting on the right-hand side. I could see it a little bit bigger, but for demo purposes, I wanted to make sure that you kind of saw where it was pulling information. So notice right here, the system's not looking at a quadrant, and we're not training every particular vendor. So we're not saying Acme, make sure you look for the PO in the right quadrant and so forth. How we do this is basically we use AI technology where we recognize the invoice as whole and start to learn the system and learn how things go. And then we actually filter through XML. Bottom line is that the system is more of a true learning type of AI based OCR capability and recognition type solution. So right here, notice it says PO 000134. So it recognized that. And what it's doing right now, it's looking to D365 when it sees that, and it goes, okay, I do see, PO in effect 134 for Acme. I'm good with that. And then if it's a three-way match, it's also looking for purchase receipts in that respect. So this is actually pulling data directly from D365 whenever we need to do it. So that's the direct API connection that we have on that particular area. So with that, it sees those PO, those purchase receipts. And by the way, you can have multiple POs, multiple purchase receipts, which again is a challenge right now with other solutions on there. And then it has that information down here. If I need to, I can certainly change quantities if it doesn't match. But notice it sees the difference is 0 based on the amount of the invoice that's in and all the purchase receipts. So this is in effect what we call a happy path. So point being is, yes, we do have Kristen on there because she's the one that's did the ordering and the buying for that particular PO, or we can put whoever is on there based on your choices. But what we do is, if it's a happy path, if everything's clear on there, and we basically, as AP selected, we can have it automatically transfer and automatically post into D365. So if it's completely clear and everything's good, then you don't even have to worry about that. But we still have Kristen there if need be. So for example, let's say that the purchase receipt wasn't there and this was a three-way match. Then what we do is we basically could click on this as AP person, and it would take it out of our AP queue, and it would go automatically or directly to Kristen, and she get notification that there's a question on there on the, that we haven't seen a purchase receipt, and she can do a little research, and then she can do comments and send information back and forth. So the other part of this is we're using the solution to basically work through the workflow and work through any situations you have, and it's all there. And by the way, as you're doing that, it's all being captured by our audit trail that we have. And this is what I was referring to, is any activity that happens, the system will automatically tag that all the way through. And so it could get very detailed, but basically the list will show you every single thing that's ever happened to this particular invoice, from ingestion all the way through to transfer. One last thing, just in case you want to take a look at this, like I mentioned, how our OCR is captured, it's very unique in the respect that, again, we're not trying to have everybody try and teach every single vendor on a quadrant based and so forth. So we're at, in fact, a next level type of AI capability with that. And then we basically send it through what we call XML. The reason I'm mentioning that is this is the output of the XML. We are transparent to show, you know what, that everything that we do is in here. Here's your PDF, here's your audit trail, and here's all the data that it captured on here. So for example, remember I mentioned that it's looking for PO 134. So if I go ahead and go, hey, go find that particular, let's look at that order and see, and notice right here as part of the XML, it sees that order, that PO number is right there. So it's right there. So it's capturing that information and bringing it in. And again, at any particular point in time, y'all can see that it's behind the scenes information. It's a little more detailed than AP or anybody really needs to see, but just so you know that that capability is there. Let me show one other thing. Let me show a non-PO. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm just going to show my specific invoices. So as you can see, I have particular ones out there. I can share them with others. I mean, that one, the non-PO. The system was looking for a PO number first. It always does. If it doesn't see that, then it goes, great, we're a non-PO. And so really it depends. Typically our clients have both a combination of PO invoices and non-PO invoices. So that's what we're referring to here. But sometimes we have just straight non-PO or straight PO invoices. That's perfectly fine too. You don't have to have both, but just to kind of show you some of our capabilities. So being it doesn't see a PO, it goes, great, I'm a non-PO. And then it looks actually for the vendor information, and it pulls the vendor information on there. So in this case, there's a Dooap invoice out there. At that point, it's going, great. We have, I see the Dooap information. I have basically the invoice amount and have all this. So me as an AP person right here would make sure that this information is captured properly. If for some reason it missed an invoice number, I can simply change that. Or I can change any of this information. If the amount is a little different, I'm changing that in AP. And what that's doing, the system is doing what we call machine learning. So it's starting to learn and go, okay, this is how I capture this Dooap invoice right now. But I'm going to get better as you start to correct it and it starts to continually learn. The reason I brought up the non-PO2 is I wanted to point out these bubbles here that basically are part of our machine learning too. So obviously with non-POs, you have coding that you have to have. So you got your main account and any dimensions that you have on there. And then notice that the system will continue to learn, and it's going to start to say, you know what, show me 80% of the time. This is the, so if I hover over this, this is the account coding that you've used 80% of the time. So that's the probability that you have. So what I'm doing is I'm actually helping the AP team, and they're actually seeing, okay, you know what, this is what's used, so I'll typically use that. We also set up what's called a confidence level. So and this would be decided by you as a company. If you say, you know, we're accepting if 80% of the time this is the coding that we use, let's automatically put that in here. And then we still have the ability for AP to change that. But what we're doing is we're making things even more streamlined and more simple, is that it's making suggestions for you, some AI suggestions on that. One last thing up here is the workflow that I've talked about. But notice that this is the queue that I'm at right now. So it's me. So basically at this point, once I accept this and approve this as AP, it's going to go to Daniel. And once Daniel looks at it as a reviewer, he's going to either approve it or deny it. But if he approves it, then it's going to go to Michael, who's the final approver. And once Michael approves it, then it's automatically going to transfer again into D365 F&O or AX 2012. There isn't one on this one, but we have some that have thresholds that you say we basically, if it's above $50,000, then it goes to Michael. If it's less than that, then it stops at Daniel. That's particularly fine too. We also have what we call groups. You can group a certain department all together. And at that point, if one sees, if it's a group of 3 people, if it goes to the first person, they look at it and approve it, then it disappears for the other 2. That's the point of having like grouping on that type of information. With that said, these non-PO invoices, same concept with the machine learning, the system's going to start to learn with this vendor, this combination, usually that's going to go to marketing, or it may go to operations or something like that. So the system's going to start to make suggestions on what the workflow should be as well. So again, we're helping and continually learning this, which is what a true AI system should do on there. All right. Got a few minutes left. I want to make sure that I leave time for any questions that we have too, but I want to point out just a few other things on here. I'm going to go ahead and slide in I mentioned about our Power BI reports. So Power BI is part of D365, part of AX 2012. And you get the tools and you get the licensing. You have to have a license to be able to view information and so forth. So that's certainly required. But they basically say, here's the tool, go ahead and build your reports. Here's some packages that you can pull down from their website and so forth. Well, what we've done to make sure that this is a complete AP automation solution is we also, like I said before, have included over 25 what we call canned reports that are specific for the AP team, the AP managers, and so forth. So right here is all our different reports for the AP side, and we do also have CFO dashboard that I'll show you as well. But basically, we have a list of everything on here. Now, one thing is for your we have something called a fast call. And so this is a great report that will show you, as soon as it pulls up, it'll show you all the invoices that are in Dooap, non-PO invoices are in Dooap that have not yet transferred into D365. So in effect, that's the accrual amount that you need to make your entry at the end of the month. And so we have the total right here. We have all the account information right here, and we have every single invoice that's part of that accrual. It's a big report that typically people need to have and want to have. And so this is one of the big ones that we have, especially if you have non-PO type invoices. I'm going to go ahead and do invoices by previous task. And I have a colleague of mine who she always goes, this is called a NAG report. And what it mean by that is this will list out all the invoices that are out there, where they're sitting currently by who the current user is right here. And I'm on this list as well. But basically it talks about number of days in workflow. So you can imagine we have a sample environment. So 41 days is pretty much unacceptable. But you get the idea that if you want to look and see, okay, why are there some invoices that are still in workflow that haven't been approved? I can see how long they've been approved and look at repeat offenders and things like that. So basically you can look at big picture as far as where bottlenecks are happening and how to alleviate them and how to take care of them and fix them. We also have a number of different reports, but a couple of things that jumped out at me are like fraud detection type reporting. So tasks where you basically have multiple people approving the same, approving here and then approving over here in the same invoice. That's like a no-no on that. So basically any fraud detection task type things that'll jump out there. I'm going to go to invoices, for example. This will show any duplicate invoices from vendors. So basically, it's not necessarily fraud, but it may be why are vendors sending the same invoice over and over, and we had to clear that out and remove that. But basically, it's kind of a duplicate invoice type thing. This one I like too, unusual invoice amounts. And it's really if it's above a certain percentage right here, and this one's massive, but if it's above a certain percentage, it's going to go, look, this is atypical of what this particular vendor would have on there. So again, some really good reports off of there. One last place I want to go, I'm going to go back to home. And these are the reports. These are part of the Power BI reports, and they're on our side, on our dashboards. But again, they could be brought into yours as well. So I'm going to go to CFO dashboard just to show you one last thing before I stop here and see if there's any questions. So CFOs as well, we have, for example, unpaid invoices by status. So even though we don't do the payment part of it, we actually process things over to the D365 and let them take it from there, because we do straight invoice processing. We do bring the payment information back into our solution to complete the reporting cycle, to complete the audit trail, but also to have these kind of things for your CFO dashboards and so forth. So basically, invoices where they paid on time or paid late, basically where the unpaid invoices are, how far they're out due 30 days, if they're due coming up, or basically they're already due or past due. Really good, strong information on there. And just like any report, you can right click on these and you can then go wherever you want to and drill into or drill through on there, and you can also filter on whatever you have as far as available, as far as like non-POs, POs, and so forth. So again, really good information on the Power BI reports as well. Really to kind of get full circle that this is really the main solution that we're trying to pull over for you all to basically give you that information. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause here. And we're right at 10 minutes before the session's over. I'm going to go ahead and jump back on camera. And hopefully you got a pretty good idea as far as some of the capabilities of Dooap, but really some of the, as Daniel mentioned, the educate on in effect some of the myths, or just an education if you're looking at AP automation. As mentioned, the Dooap, the D365 solution specifically, they do have like invoice capture, but there's a lot of extra licensing, extra work that have to happen. So be prepared if you want to go down that path. And there are other ISVs that can do this kind of thing. And like I said, Dooap is one of the ones that a lot of people seem to like because of our philosophy, because of how we do our approach, and so forth. So again, I want to thank you for your time on that, and I want to go ahead and open it up and see if there was any questions that anybody had that they wrote in, or if they just want to open up and see if they want to ask any questions right now. So Kristen or Ray, were there any questions out there?
I don't see any in the Q&A or the comments.
Yep.
But if anyone does have any questions, feel free to enter them in now. We can get them answered on screen. I think oh, here we go. What about three-way match? How would that work?
Great question. So yeah, we can handle three-way match. How this works with Dooap specifically is, as I mentioned, the capture itself will look to D365. So it'll first look at the D365 PO and look for that and match that to the vendor and go, okay, great. At that point in D365, I assume you're talking D365 or AX 2012, either way. From there, you know that on that line, in the line details, it says if it's a two-way or three-way match. Dooap looks to see what that says. If it says two-way match, then it's done. It goes, I got my PO. If it says three-way match, and if it finds them, it will then add that to the Dooap and say, okay, here's the purchase receipts, and we're trying to match that information up. If the purchase receipt, if it's a three-way match and the purchase receipt's not there, that's where it will then show up in red in effect and say, you know what, we're missing some information. What do you need to do? So as the AP person would be, they would then see that information right in front of them. They could go to D365 or AX very quickly and with a link and say, here's the information we're at. Or basically the system's going to go, I'm going to go look for the buyer or the order for that. And AP would just go ahead and via workflow forward that to that particular person, and they can add a comment to that saying, hey, where's the purchase receipt on this particular thing? So basically it's putting it out of AP's hands and putting it into the order or the buyer and have them take a look at that information. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Sarah, for that question. I think that might be all the questions that we got.
No worries. Great. Well, certainly appreciate your time, and we'll give you the greatest gift of all is 6 minutes back to your day as well. As mentioned, that this has been recorded, so that information is available. We'll talk about posting that. We'll get information to you all that attended. If you have any additional questions or need any other information on there, I will say this: if interested, basically. We have a couple of ways. First of all, my name is Scott Schlegel. So if you want to just go ahead and ping me specifically, scott.schlegel@dooap.com. Another easy way is you can book a chat with us. We try to make it as simple as possible. So we are dooap.com. So www.dooap.com. And in there, there's actually a demo. If you want to look at that, it's a 12-minute demo. But there's a thing that says chat with Scott. or book a demo if you wanted to, or book a meeting. And so basically it would then you could pick on a calendar and say, hey, I want a 15-minute conversation with you to talk a little bit about more, or hey, I want to have a demo with myself, my team. You can book directly from our website. So try and make it as simple as possible for you all to be able to contact us. So I think that's it. Daniel, do you have any other questions or any other points that you want to make before we close out?
No, just to thank you for the presentation today, Scott. I thought it was really well presented, really well done, and hopefully people get a sense of the depth and breadth of what Dooap does.
Thanks. Certainly appreciate that, and do appreciate all of you that joined on. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.